Is that you, Tetsuo? That bike's too wild for a kid like you. You couldn't handle it. If you want one so badly, steal one for yourself. Get your power bike ready. Swallow a handful of capsules. Because today, we're going headlong into the streets of Neo-Tokyo. We're seeing what that shadow organization's hiding from us, and we're getting our friend back. Damn. Just as my coils were reaching the green line. Let's go! What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining us over here at Review Zero, once again, the only place online that lets you feel like you're stalking the streets of Neo-Tokyo, popping a capsule and reading the back of the VHS box. My name is Race, and I will be your host for today's video. Today, we are covering the 1988 cyberpunk sci-fi thriller, Akira. As per usual over here at Review Zero, we're going to be giving credit where credit is due. That's right, we are going to be throwing up those credits and giving so much love to everybody involved with this film. Specifically the director, Katsuhiro Otomo, who not only directed, but was the original writer and creator of the manga. This cyberpunk classic was set in the year 2019 in Neo-Tokyo. As things turn out, and we'll tell you a little bit later on in the video, things are not going well for this dystopian / post-apocalyptic setting. Everybody in the cast and crew that was involved, from the original filming, directing, animation, the voice actors, of course, even by today's standards, this film is still unrivaled as far as the visuals, the atmosphere, and even the music. The musical direction for this film was really outside of bounds for something so sci-fi and dystopian and super animated out during that time in the 80s where a lot of anime were really leaning into more heavy metal, rock, or pop standards, or kind of bubblegum music like this. This took a completely different approach to where not only did the director, but his musical director and composer as well, they ended up using gamelan. For those of you who don't know, gamelan is actually a Southeast Asian style of music that includes bells, hollowed out bamboo tubes, and mallets or hand motions, to where it is next to impossible to create it with anything remotely close to a piano, a keyboard, or a stringed instrument. It's very unique into this movie, considering that most things during the time were either using rock and roll, heavy metal, or even just kind of bubblegum pop music. So this sets the tone with all this percussive, almost ethereal type sound, as well as the actual breathy noise and the chants that are going on, such as Kanada's theme. So yeah, it was a little bit weird. Like we mentioned before, Akira was directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, which was the original manga writer, the mangaka of the same name. The film was produced by Tokyo Movie Shinsha, and it was actually released July of 88, and then it was later on released in the United States in 1991. This is where a lot of us saw that iteration of it, whether it was a subtitled version or the original Orion dub, which I really didn't have any problems with. That's where a lot of us heard the mispronounced names, such as Kaneda, Tetsuo. It was pretty bad. I wouldn't say it was bad. Everybody gave it their all. There was a lot of heart that was put into it, but it was a little bit campy because this was relatively new for the US market. It's not like today where you can look at anime at almost any Target, Walmart, whatever, every single streaming site ever. I mean, heck, most of them do simulcast now with the dubs already ready, so there is more cohesion with the writers doing dialogue and everything else, so it's not as daunting as adapting an entire film and an entire storyline and making it fit a vocal narrative for American actors. The film's plot centers around the biker gang known as the Capsules, led by the one and only Kaneda, as well as his second-in-command, Tetsuo, who acquires godlike powers after a run-in with a being known as 26. After gaining these godlike abilities, Tetsuo becomes increasingly unstable, both mentally and physically. He is then taken by the government to be experimented on, but the Capsules are not going to let their buddy be taken without a fight. So, without getting too far into things, there is espionage, there is the coupling of Kaneda as well as one of the female protagonists in the movie named Kei, who gets swept up in this guerrilla warfare with the government and the military to be able to get Tetsuo back. The only problem with getting Tetsuo back is these abilities have left him incredibly unstable. He's developing psychic abilities and psychokinetic and telekinetic abilities to where his brain is basically mutating into an almost supercomputer type thing. I mean, it's a weird techno-organic thing that later on in the film you get to see some pretty hardcore body horror stuff that really mixes tech and body, and it's just it's pretty wild. It's pretty out there. But there's been a secret military group tasked to go ahead and take down the capsules, get Tetsuo back no matter what. And really the themes is exploring power, politics, and the consequences of that unchecked power and balance, as well as the downside of scientific and technological advancements. After some incredible visuals and a stunning motorcycle chase, as well as an awesome showdown on the freeway between the capsules and the clowns, we then cut back to Neo Tokyo, to where we see a man in a trench coat and a hat, real low down, leading this small, what looks like child, away from this crowd of people. And then we see that this crowd of people is actually a group of military or possibly paramilitary that's trying to track these two down. Bullets start flying, gore and viscera going everywhere, even some yipes and yells from some attack dogs. We are then shown that this child is not a child. He is what's referred to as an Esper, and he is number 26. And number 26 is that because of the 26 on his palm, and he's the 26th experiment that this paramilitary group or governmental organization has been experimenting on for quite some time, while trying to get away from the armed forces that are trying to reclaim this little blue and white haired little guy. The capsules end up running into him. Literally, Tetsuo ends up crashing headlong into him, and number 26, using his powers, blows Tetsuo's bike up. Tetsuo is gravely injured on the ground, basically just holding on for dear life. And while the capsules, including Kaneda and Yamagata and Kei, are trying to figure out, hey, we got to get him to the hospital, gigantic helicopter swoops in, opens up, carts him off. The capsules are then beat up, arrested, and Tetsuo is taken to a black site somewhere, a hospital. As the movie progresses, we are introduced to a few different characters on the government side, as well as the kind of guerrilla faction side that is introduced to our main characters, specifically Kaneda, by one of the only female protagonists in the film, named Kei. Kei is an underground resistance fighter who's trying to take down the new government and trying to expose all the corruption, as well as her partner in crime, Ryu. Kaneda gets swept up in so much stuff that he doesn't even know. I mean, he tries to fake his way and try to hit on her by saying, oh yeah, I'm part of the resistance too, whatever, which he's just a street punk. He's just out there to steal bikes, cause troubles, and pop a few capsules. 2019 Neo Tokyo dystopian future. What are you going to do? We then cut back to Tetsuo, who has escaped from the hospital in a very, very violent way. He is now roaming the streets of Neo Tokyo, trying to get back to his people and trying to find a sense of semblance after all that's gone on. His brain is fighting with these new ideas and these flashes, and he keeps hearing the name Akira over and over and over again, and it's starting to drive him insane. As Tetsuo wanders the streets of Neo Tokyo, he ends up finding Kaneda's bike where it was supposed to be parked. He finds his girlfriend Kaori, as well, and steals the motorcycle and says nuts to it. I'm getting out of the city. I'm taking my girl and what should be my bike, and I'm getting the hell out of here. After only getting a few blocks away, he doesn't really know how to handle the bike like he's supposed to. In the beginning of the film, Kaneda sees him on it in an alleyway, kind of messing around with the dials and the controls, and he gives this ridiculous spec breakdown of twin ceramic rotors, computer-controlled anti-lock brakes. Wow, this thing goes up to 12,000 RPM, which anybody who actually rides knows that none of that really means anything. So after getting only those few blocks away, the bike shuts itself down basically, and he sees what he was doing wrong, and he explains it in some sort of techno jargon that doesn't really have to do with either computers or motorcycles, which is funny considering how in-depth the iconography of the motorcycle, I mean the power bike itself, but motorcycles in general, and the iconography that goes with the whole subculture of biker gangs, specifically Japanese biker gangs known as Bososuko. So while Tetsuo is messing around with the bike and trying to get it to go, his girlfriend Kaori looks over the shoulder and says, "Hey, there's a bunch of bikes, look it over there. I think that's Kaneda and the rest of them." It's not. It's the other rival gang, it's the clowns, and they take turns accosting Kaori and beating Tetsuo again until Kaneda and the rest of the capsules actually do show up and put the beat down on people. Kaneda is confronting Tetsuo about stealing the bike, and Tetsuo starts having more of these episodes, and Kaneda sees that he's very unstable and that he is hurting, and he's just trying to get his buddy right, but there's a lot of resentment that's there, and there's a lot of weird, wacky stuff going on in Tetsuo's head, so things do go badly, and Tetsuo ends up leaving the group once again. Through some more scenes, we see more political dirtbags doing political dirtbag stuff. We end up leaving the capsules with Yamagata and Kei being in charge, and Kaneda going off with the female protagonist Kei, who's part of the underground, and they are trying to infiltrate and find where the secret labs are to find out more information on what really happened in Tokyo all those years ago, and to figure out what's happening with his buddy Tetsuo. At the beginning of the third act of the film, we're starting to round things out. We've lost a few different companions along the way because Tetsuo is completely insane now with the telekinetic abilities and telekinetic powers and the voices of Akira and really everything else Sonic. Imagine for a minute that you got superpowers and you could read everybody's mind, but you had no control over it. The sound of a few million people talking at once, it's enough to drive anybody insane. And it did exactly that. So now Tetsuo has taken it upon himself to become the new leader of the new resistance and the new world, and he is allowing the rest of these religious fanatics and zealots that are trying to rise to the streets. He's now allowing himself to become their new king. He is allowing them to believe that he is the new Lord Akira incarnate. Superpowers can really go to your head, guys. Be careful. After some more mind-bending, destructive stuff, including superpowers and tanks and just things being tossed around, we end up at the Olympic Stadium that's in Tokyo, because in that year, funny enough, the way that it happened in the film, just like in real life, the Olympics were going to be held in Tokyo for, 2019/2020. So that was, I don't know if that was a happy accident as much as it was a cool coincidence, or heck, maybe it was just fate. I know that when 2019 rolled around, I bought myself a new motorcycle. Kind of just because. So the big showdown between Kaneda and Tetsuo is commencing, and this is where we get some of the most iconic shots in the entire movie, as well as through most sci-fi, horror, thriller, whatever genre you'd like to call this, cyberpunk, to where we're getting some real crazy body horror stuff, which wasn't in the manga, but that's okay. I would rather have had it on the screen and not in the manga, because it is incredible. The amount of time that they took animating everything, like we said before, wasn't done at 124, it was done at 130, and then even in some instances, it was done at 160. So the fluid motion and movement is mind-altering. Anybody that's seen the film knows when Tetsuo goes into his transformation and he can't control his own form. Different parts of his body moving and jetting out almost as if they're fungus growing in a petri dish. You're seeing these things shoot out all over the place, and they have little fingers on them and eyeballs, and it's pretty wacky, but you go ahead and have to do that for yourself. Really, check it out. You'll do yourself a favor. With Kaneda trying to stop Tetsuo from transforming and destroying the city and letting his psychic, telekinetic, just insane godlike powers take over and destroy the city again, he is left with only one option only, and that is to destroy his best friend. Really awesome battle with lasers and more powers, but he ends up being encompassed by Tetsuo's new horrible form. And then something happens to where, if you watch the film, it's just this really odd, esoteric kind of trip about Kaneda living inside of Tetsuo's memories, maybe, or maybe this is an alternate reality of what could have happened, or what should happen, or maybe it did happen. But the movie ends with Neo Tokyo being destroyed once again, Tetsuo going and being with Akira in spirit, I suppose, and Kaneda trying to kind of claw his life back together. There aren't very many of the capsules that are left, and the few that did survive, we get to see them on their broken down motorcycles, driving out of Neo Tokyo on the last standing expressway bridge out, and the movie closes. Akira really offers a complex and thought-provoking look at the dynamics of political power and the consequence of social upheaval. I mean, its themes of political corruption and the unchecked power that can continue to drive and destroy existing and up-and-coming societies is really something that cemented it as a classic and a real thinker for not only anime, but sci-fi and cyberpunk as a whole. The behind-the-scenes production of Akira was a major undertaking that took many years to get done. We're talking about the better part of about 5 years from beginning to end. I mean, Otomo directed the film, wrote the screenplay, while the animation team and, the secondary direction team of all of these incredibly talented animators and artists, I mean, they were taking such care with every single frame that, I mean, heck, out of the, hundreds of thousands of frames of animation cells, most of them are typically displayed once every few years during an anniversary, a celebration, or whatnot, and they are in pristine condition. And the level of detail, I mean, going down to something as small as a watch. I mean, there are scratch faces on reflective surfaces. There's everything. I mean, it's incredible. The only way that it could have been done better through motion would have been through rotoscoping. And if any of you know what rotoscoping is, it's kind of a gamble whether or not you can animate over it. So considering the large amount of detail that had to go into the filmmaking and animation process, this is really what led Akira to be one of the most detailed and beautifully animated pieces of not just Japanese anime, but film and animated film in all of the history, both contemporary or current. The film's unique and detailed animation style is really one of the main reasons of why it's become such a cornerstone in not only the Japanese anime film industry, but just the animated film industry in general, or just the film industry. This is something that's a little bit of a classic now, considering that it's over 30 years old. But even contemporary pieces of Japanese anime, or even Korean animation or American animation, anything else, there are not many that can hold a candle to what this looks like. Despite the challenging production process, Akira was incredibly well received by audiences and critics alike, both domestic and foreign. It remains one of the most highly regarded anime films of all time, and really helped popularize anime as a whole in the western part of the world and the rest of the world. its impact on the animation industry is felt to this day. Like we said beforehand, the musical score for Akira features gamelan. It features an entire ensemble of gamelan instruments. It's a traditional Indonesian type of percussion ensemble that's typically bronze gongs and metallophones, as well as drums. Now, gamelan music has a unique sound and rhythm to it that is characterized by interlocking parts and uses of different melodies and harmonies that really don't syncopate all that well, but they're so stacked on top of each other that sonically it creates this wall and this atmosphere that is very, very distinct. And most Western audiences or Western ears, it sounds alien. Not even foreign, we're talking alien, something new and futuristic. The composer of the film score was Shoji Yamashiro, very well known for his work in the film and television industry and his use of gamelan. That's why Otomo grabbed him. He wanted Akira to sound very different and very unique considering its source material and what he wanted to convey. He didn't want to go with pop or rock or anything like that. He wanted something new and crazy. This is supposed to be 30 years in the future. This is supposed to be Neo-Tokyo. And he wanted that to feel like a new genre of music. Because the soundtrack has been so widely praised for its innovative and effective use of gamelan, it's really regarded as one of the best soundtracks of all time that doesn't feature a lot of vocals either. The majority of it are breaths and chants, but nothing lyric. Now, we can't do an Akira breakdown without mentioning motorcycles again. Motorcycles play one of the most significant parts in the story, and they are depicted as symbols of freedom and rebellion and youthful energy. I mean, the flick takes place in a post-apocalyptic version of Tokyo where gangs of young motorcycle dirtbags, Bosozuko, are roaming the streets and engaging in high-speed chases and dangerous stunts and all this crazy stuff. So the motorcycle is, for lack of a better comparison, the motorcycle in Akira is to what the lightsaber is in Star Wars. Many of the production staff, from the art directors to Otomo himself, are big motorcycle heads. I mean, they're huge gearheads, they're all riders. And they wanted to depict the motorcycles in this movie as powerful, fast, sleek, sexy, futuristic, almost impossible designs. I mean, this is 30 years in the future from when it was made, so they were thinking about all the high-tech, crazy stuff that was going to be in there. So that's where this nonsense of computer-controlled anti-lock brakes and twin ceramic drive motors and yada yada all came into play. Specifically that point where Kaneda really starts revving it up, you see these green sparks go through the wheels, and then he has to stop the chase because the police get involved, and he hits that one line that says, "Damn, just as my coils will reach the green line." What coils? What the hell was he talking about? Doesn't matter, because it was awesome. I mean, the use of the motorcycles in Akira is the key part of the film's visual style, and it really helps establish the film's fast-paced, action-packed atmosphere. The portrayal of the motorcycles themselves have been widely praised by not only the fans and critics, but gearheads alike, and have cemented the idea of a big, fast, powerful motorcycle as being a key element or even a character in not only anime films, but this is translated into video games. Think about Final Fantasy VII. Okay, think about Cloud Strife and Fenrir. Think about Batman the Animated Series and Robin on his motorcycle. Think about Batman on his motorcycle. From the day that this film came out until today, the iconic Power Slide. God, that never gets old. Has been mimicked and nodded to and recreated so many different times in so many different avenues of media, such as film, television, animation, everything from Adventure Time all the way to its most recent iteration and nod was Jordan Peele's movie Nope. That's right, one of the most applauded filmmakers of contemporary cinema now has an Akira reference in his movie. Now I think it's time for me to grab my own gear, jump on my own power bike, and jet down the road. Gotta let those neon lights fly by, you know? Those coils ain't gonna hit the green line by themselves. So, with all that in mind, thanks for joining us once again over here at Review Zero. My name is Race, and we'll catch you next time. Oh, and one more thing.
If you want it so bad, then steal one yourself.